Hi, I'm Bryce. At the Austin Public Library, we have a lot of services that we make available via our website or in person or sometimes somewhere in between or a combination of the two. And sometimes these services we make ourselves, such as our website, and sometimes we link to somebody else's website or service, and sometimes we work on integrations that are some kind of hybrid in between. And we are working with all kinds of different people internally and externally, and we need a place to be able to help create a understanding about those services and create a place where we can collaborate on them. And a strategy that we are embarking on is to use GitHub as an umbrella project, and then under that we can have multiple projects within that. So starting with our website, our CMS, and also other services, we are unpacking how those work, documenting what they are, how did we get here, where are we going, and inviting people, even ourselves, to help extend them, to refine them, and ultimately to be open and create a community by which we can all work together to improve the services that we're using and help the next person to come along. But as we're doing that, we really want to make sure that we don't get lost in the specific code, to get lost in the forest for the trees. And we really always want to make sure that we're adhering to these core principles. And we are leaning on the recommendations of the US Web Design System. And they have a maturity model, and this is a chart from that. And they always remind us that first, starting with principles and user needs, then we create some guidance and ultimately some code. So I'll be showing some code or some specific demonstrations of how we're doing those things, but really we always want to stick to the principles. And so I'm showing, using DocuMentor, how we are achieving both the code and the principles alongside each other. So one of the things that DocuMentor can do is take a PDF or any document or text or image and help you understand it. So in this case, I've added the maturity model PDF. Now that's a 29-page document that, it's a lot to read, a lot to digest. And in this case, I'm only interested in radio buttons, so I kind of only care about what they have to say about that. But I can use DocuMentor to help shine a light, to focus on that particular matter at hand, and to also offer me some guidance and even some specific code. Another thing I could do is just simply ask, okay, this project that we've been working on, are we ready for prime time? Now, it may need to ask me some questions to find out what the case may be, but it can use this document to understand what the checklists are, compare that with where we are, and then create a game plan from there. So that's very time-saving and streamlining for accomplishing what we're trying to do. And remember, we're always trying to adhere to those main principles. So in this case, I'm having DocuMentor generate a CSV, and it can easily do that and create that to be downloadable. Now, what I might want to do is store that CSV somewhere else, and that's what I was saying. GitHub is a perfect place to put files, even if you're just keeping them there for version control, because you might change them and might want to revert back or see what the history of those changes were. It's useful for that, but it's also useful for collaborating with other people or making it trigger certain automated processes, and GitHub is perfectly set up for that too. So in this case, I've added a list, such as that CSV, something I've generated previously, and I've added that on the back end to this custom GPT, and that way I can ask questions about it, and it can instantly compare what I'm asking to its list of generated, pre-answers. So, and that's what we're trying to do, is we're using DocuMentor to create some modular components, such as text files or CSVs or markdown documentation files or whatever. But once we achieve some kind of nugget of knowledge, we want to store that over in a project over in GitHub so that we can refer back to it. It's kind of like breadcrumbs, or being able to get back to some amazing milestones. So DocuMentor can help you get there, but you always want to make sure that you're saving some things so that other people can benefit from that as well, or just so that you can instantly jump to that point of progress. So in this slide, I'm demonstrating that it's very easy with ChatGPT in a custom GPT to alter the general instructions, and that's what we've done for DocuMentor. We gave it the name DocuMentor. We also gave it some custom instructions, and that's truncated, but below that it would say make sure that you're sticking to US web design best practices, and it has some other kind of things that we always wanted to keep in mind to contextualize DocuMentor so that we, again, are staying within that focus of our main principles. So once you define what those principles are, putting those in the general instructions is a great practice so that you don't have to repeat yourself and so that you're always staying within those kind of defined boundaries. So now that we have this GitHub space, or I called it an organization within GitHub, which has a lot of projects within it, one situation that we're facing is that people still are a little reluctant to jump into GitHub. It has a reputation for being very developer swarmed with, and it's not necessarily so inviting to the creative or visually oriented types. So one thing I've done is use DocuMentor to generate a sample project, and this is an example of creative coding. It uses JavaScript and CSS and HTML, just some basic structures, nothing too sophisticated. But we've saved that on GitHub and then created an invitation via the README that explains how it works and how to get involved, how to change it and alter it, or make it your own. And this is an example of what it looks like if you choose to edit the README. And a README is just a document that explains what something is, and it's written in Markdown format. So that makes it such that whenever you're showing it in a browser, it makes the headlines big or makes different parts of the site linkable, or just a quick way of generating some functional HTML. So there you have it. That's what Markdown looks like once it's interpreted. And we used DocuMentor to create the Markdown, and then we saved the Markdown over in GitHub in this project called Cityscape. And that's an example of it on display, and that's a feature that GitHub offers, is that whatever you're putting on GitHub, you can easily make a website out of it. And especially if it's very simple, such as static files, like in this case, it's just an index.html file and some JavaScript, which is very easily reproduced and then shareable. So in this case, the creative coding example makes a cityscape, and then every time you reload the page, it's fresh. So you can just do it over and over. So what I'm trying to do here is create examples that are enticing and interesting for people to understand and maybe have an interest in extending to learn about more or to make it more useful. And in some cases, we're doing it creatively, in some cases functionally, but in all cases, we want to make opportunities for people to learn and contribute, and for the right reasons, not because they have to, but because they want to. So we also want to make sure that DocuMentor, and this is advice from the US Web Design System as well, namely that we always write in inclusive language and ways that make people feel welcome to be a part of it, even if they're learning, or we want to make spaces where it's okay to make mistakes. So thank you for coming, and I will open the door for questions now. And for the people that are listening in and wanting to offer feedback, thank you in advance. So my questions are, what further examples would help people, such as designers, lose their reluctance to try out GitHub? What projects could I do, or what projects could I highlight that would help people understand that this is an amazing resource that's not just for developers? So maybe highlighting the ability to make an instant website, or maybe showcasing how we're tying different repositories together and having multiple repositories, or um, just not sure if that's truly well understood. So, anyway, thank you for your time, and I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.